Hey friends, it's Ms. Karn here, and today we're going to be talking about splitting arrays. We've been working on this for the past 2 weeks, and today we're going to be learning a new strategy to help us write those tricky multiplication sentences. But first, we're going to talk about what we already know and the strategy we've already learned for splitting large multiplication problems into an easier array. So, here we have our array, and we're going to first find our large array's multiplication sentence. So I'm going to say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. So that means that my large multiplication sentence that represents the large array is 8 times 7. So my next step is to split my large array into two smaller arrays. And I'm going to use my multiples of 5 to help me with this. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns go in one group. So I'm going to draw my line here. I want to make this first number 5 columns because I'm really good at multiplying by 5. So it's going to make it easier for me to solve this problem. That means I have 2 columns left. And you can see that 7, if we split it up, it would be 5 and 2. We still have the same number of columns. We just, instead of saying one group of 7, we said there's 5 columns and there's 2 columns. Now, I'm going to find the number of rows. I know that my number of rows doesn't change, so I still have 8 rows. So now I know that this small array is 8 times 5, and this small array is 8 times 2. So if I added those two small arrays together, I would get the answer for 8 times 7. But what would happen if I didn't have the array to help me, if there wasn't a picture? Well, that's what we're going to be learning today. We're going to be thinking about how we can use what we know about splitting numbers to help us solve these tricky multiplication problems. So we know that our large multiplication sentence is 8 times 7. And we're going to split 7 into two smaller numbers. So I could split it into 6 and 1, or 5 and 2, or 3 and 4. Well, of those numbers that I just said, 5 is the easiest for me to multiply by. So I'm going to put a 5 in one of my boxes. Now, I know that 5 plus 2 equals 7. So what I did was I took this 7 and I split it into two groups. I said, this group is 5 and this group is 7. So now I have 8 times 7, but I split this 7 up. And this is going to help me with the smaller multiplication sentences that we have to write. So I'm going to say 8 times 5. That's going to be my first number sentence. Because remember, my rows stays the same. But here, instead of writing 7, I'm going to write the first number that I split 7 into. Now for my second multiplication sentence, I still have 8 rows. That didn't change because it's still the same as this. And then I'm going to do 8 times 2 because that's the other number that we split the 7 into. So now we have 8 times 2. So we just wrote our really complex number sentence by taking the 7, splitting it into two smaller numbers, and then using those two smaller numbers to help us write our two smaller multiplication sentences. So for today, our learning target is I am learning to use what I know about addition and splitting numbers so that I can make difficult multiplication problems easier to solve. Good luck!